I think one of the questions that I've had, specifically for you, is I get tired of being told one thing and watching our politicians do something else.
Yeah.
How do people know that you have the balls to stand up for what you say you're going to stand up for?
Yeah.
You are listening to the East Texas Banner right here at easttexasbanner.com. We've got the privilege of sitting down with David Covey. Now, you're running for state representative for District 21?
Yes, sir.
District 21, okay. So how did you get to this point to even throw your hat in the ring?
I have been paying attention to politics for a little while.
Okay.
And been involved at the county level over in my county in Orange County.
Okay.
I was precinct chair, helped let people know when it's time to vote, became a county chair, and basically was responsible for running a primary election. And as I did that, I started paying more attention to how elected officials at the county level and at the state level voted.
Right.
And one of the things that brought me to deciding to run was as I observed the incumbent, Dade Phelan, in office, and he went from state representative to speaker.
Okay.
And his votes were consistently different than what I believed the person representing our area should be.
Okay.
I also looked back and saw that he hasn't been challenged since he originally ran. And so as I looked at that, and me and my wife prayed about it, I believed I was in a position where I had enough knowledge to be able to run for the position. And about that time, the last couple of years, I've had 2 boys.
Okay.
And so it's very important to me that they have the same freedoms I've had. And so it brought this even more as a priority in my life to be able to go and do my part. And I want to be able to look my boys in the eyes years down the road and say, I did everything I could to keep this country free.
Gotcha. Okay. So, having said that, you get into a race against an incumbent, and there's obviously another challenger with Miss Davis, and it seems like the closer we get to March 5th, the more mud shows up, right? The more things start getting thrown around, things being said about all candidates, right? My question for you is, how do you navigate that when you feel like you're in the crosshairs? How do you navigate that? I mean, because to me mentally, it's almost like, I wouldn't call myself a sanctified individual, right? I'm still working on some of the redneck in me, right? But how do you navigate some of that, man?
I think politics has become worse, and the lies and the personal attacks seems to get worse and worse every election cycle.
Sure.
It's not a good thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think we should be able to run campaigns on the issues, talk about what we disagree on, and respect each other's opinions if we disagree.
Right.
So we've run our campaign best we can on the issues.
Right.
Now we disagree with some of the issues and the incumbents' positions on those. But it doesn't help anybody to encourage lies and throw those out there.
Okay.
This is something that the voters ultimately have to look at the issues, say where do these people stand, and then make their decision.
So if you were going to take the top 3 things that you disagree with the incumbent on, what would you say those are?
The first and foremost is the border.
Okay.
And just seeing the way he's killed House Bill 20, which was to create a border security unit, which would be their role, is to go down to the border and secure that. They would work with DPS. That's a huge thing. And he'll tell you in his mailers and TV ads that he's spending 600% more on the border. But the crossings and the encounters at the border are up to the highest level they've ever been.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you throw money at it. If you don't do what's necessary to close the border, then it doesn't matter how much money you're spending. And I think we don't have the political will because our law enforcement knows how to close the border.
Okay.
They can do that if we have the political will to let them do that.
Okay, so border would be number one.
Border's number one. The second one is election integrity. And I think Mr. Phelan continues to weaken election integrity, and that's one of the reasons that President Trump endorsed me, was because he wouldn't pass the election audit bill that President Trump asked him to pass. And so that's a second one. And if our votes are not secure, then really nothing else matters.
Well, election integrity. Talk to me a little bit about how he failed on that end.
Yep. So on election integrity, we need to allow the Attorney General, and Ken Paxton, who's also endorsed me, had put forward a bill to say that he can prosecute election fraud when district attorneys fail to prosecute local election fraud. Speaker Phelan killed that bill so that the Attorney General of Texas, our top law enforcement officer, can't go after them. And so if DAs don't do their job, there's nothing we can do. So I think that was a failure.
Okay.
And then a third one that is very strong and covers a lot of ground is appointing Democrat chairs. Mr. Phelan has promised, if reelected, to appoint more Democrats to chair committees. And I think what voters have to understand is, for example, when he appoints Democrat Joe Moody, who's a Black Lives Matters activist, to chair the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. That's the Law and Order Committee. So we're putting the Black Lives Matter Democrat over the Law and Order Committee. Joe Moody has the power, at his total discretion, to bring a bill up for a hearing, pass it out of his committee, kill it, not bring it up for a hearing, and determines whether any bill gets to the floor of the House for a vote. So Dade Phelan appointed 9 Democrat chairs to important committees like Law and Order, like the Environment, where they have strong agendas on the environment.
Right.
And that undermines, to me, Republican principles and what Republicans go to the polls to support.
Right.
So.
Wow. So this is a much bigger issue maybe than people realize.
I think it's a way bigger issue when we realize the significance of Texas is a red state and we're electing Republicans at every level.
Right.
And then the Republicans we elect, like Mr. Phelan, go and willingly give power to the Democrats. Now, we don't have to. There's no rule. Right. People need to understand there's no rule that says you have to appoint. And he'll tell you that, well, it's just tradition. Well, there are a lot of traditions that have been wrong, and somebody had to stand up and say, let's not keep doing this.
Right.
And so just because something wrong has been done in the past doesn't mean you keep doing it.
Okay. So really, we're talking about the border.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Democratic chairs. I mean, those two things right there would almost make the majority of folks perk up. That
would make them perk up, because what the border issue is allowing people to come into this country that are from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other countries on the terrorist watch list. And so it's not that we're against people in South America that have bad economic situations from coming here.
Right.
They need to come and play by the rules like everybody else, because there are people that have been waiting years. But ultimately, it's putting our entire country at risk.
I got you.
And the drugs and the human smuggling that occurs because of that border, it has to be stopped. And you can't just say, well, I paid a lot of money and threw a lot of money at it. If it's not solving the problem, then you failed.
Right. So tell me some of your priorities specifically. I mean, I've been over to your website, checked some of your stuff out, but tell me some of the things that are really kind of your flagship marquee items that you feel like need to be addressed starting day one, if elected.
Yep. It would include those three for sure.
Those three right off the bat.
Those three right off the bat. I've promised I won't vote for a Speaker of the House who is going to appoint Democrats.
Okay.
And I will support and file legislation to close the border immediately, declare an invasion, and also to file bills to allow the Attorney General to prosecute election fraud in any county when a DA doesn't, and to increase penalties for election fraud. So all three of those. But a fourth one that we haven't talked about is school choice.
Okay. Yeah, where do you stand on that? Because that's a big issue right now.
It's a big issue, and I think it can be a complicated issue,
Sure.
but it's also, I think we can make it simple, is parents should have the choice to choose where their kids go to school.
Okay.
Ultimately, and so the money needs to follow the child, in my opinion. Mr. Phelan, when the school choice bill came up, he voted present, which is an effective no vote. He added to the quorum but wouldn't vote for it. And so he helped kill that bill. But parents know the best way and place that their kids need to get educated. And I come from a family that my mom was a teacher, my dad's an engineer.
Okay.
But my mom homeschooled us. So she came home and we had home education. Mm-hmm. So I come from a background of parents paying into the schools on their taxes,
right,
but then having to fund my education outside of that.
Right.
And to me, parents shouldn't have to choose that. They should be able to choose if they have a good public school. We have some good public schools in
right,
Southeast Texas. Then go there. But if you want to change that and go to private school, homeschool, you should have the funds to be able to do that.
Okay, so this kind of hits home with me. I've got 4 kids. We've homeschooled since day one, and not anything about. We travel, obviously. You know, I still have oil field duties.
Yes, sir.
And so we travel around quite a bit. So it was what was conducive for us to be able to keep the family unit together. But one of the things I've always noticed is, and I've never raised any kind of cane about it because I just looked at it as the decision Dad makes.
Yes.
And you know, parents make for their kids to try to give them the best education and also keep that unity of the family together. But one of the things that I have noticed is, you know, I'm taxed by any school that we're a part of, and we then have to turn around and buy all the curriculum for our kids every year.
Yeah.
Which once again, I'm not a victim here. I made the decision. We made the choice, and it's actually turned out pretty well for our kids. At the same time, I've always wondered why that was never, you know, that was never talked about more from the homeschooling community.
Yeah.
Is why it's kind of it's almost like, in a way, because we are making the choice that, you know, we have this tax involved to support the local school, which I'm not against support. I'm not against taking away support for local schools.
Yes.
Because, you know, I think the only difference of what you said versus what I'm saying, or what I'm thinking, is some parents are, I would question the competency of some parents in handling the education of their kids. Would you agree with that?
Yes, no doubt. But ultimately, we have to trust someone.
Sure.
And so I would rather trust the parents with the well-being of their children than put that in the government's hands and say they get to determine that.
I got you.
And so, you know, one of the things you're talking about too is, and I was actually on the phone with a teacher earlier this morning, and we had this conversation because the last thing we want to do is undercut the schools where they no longer have the funds to pay the good teachers, to have administrative costs. And so the school choice bills that I've seen that I would support are ones that, you know, if right now in Texas we allot $12,000 per child in the school district, it keeps I guess what they call the M&O money with the school,
Right.
and only the textbook educational dollars follow the child, which is $8,000. The $4,000 then stays with the school district to pay for your teachers and your buildings and things
Right.
that you need.
Maintenance and operations.
Maintenance and operations. So that's that way you don't affect those teachers, because we don't want to put teachers out where they don't have it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not fair for parents to have to pay twice.
Right.
And so that's how you get around that. And
Okay.
another suggestion that I've had is because when you give money back to parents, there's a great concern about strings attached, and the government telling you what history curriculum, what science curriculum
Sure.
is to give the parents of school-age children who don't go to public school a tax exemption, so that the money never goes into the government. You just get an exemption on your taxes. That way it eliminates the possibility of having strings attached.
I got you. Now, one of the things I noticed on your website, you are also a proponent of eliminating property tax.
Yeah.
How do you approach that topic? Because, I mean, once again, we're not talking about, the incumbent in this race has a history that we can pick apart, right?
Yes.
And for new candidates or candidates who are running, some of this is, hey, and right now, I mean, from what I can tell out of the three, we have two candidates with you and Davis who are hardcore on eliminate property tax.
Yes.
How do we navigate that complicated topic?
Yes. So one of the things I've done in my past has been I was on the State Republican Executive Committee.
Okay.
And I was on one of their committees called the Resolutions Committee, and we helped write the primary ballot propositions in 2022. And one of those propositions was to eliminate property tax. So
Okay.
I actually worked on putting that wording on the ballot, where last primary we voted for it. And that passed by over 80% of the voters saying, yes, we want to eliminate property taxes. So I have a history of pushing this
Okay.
that goes back years. And people ask, well, if we eliminate the property tax, does that mean we have a state income tax? How do we replace it and still fund it? So to me, there's 3 steps to get there. One, we have to go in and cut excessive spending and cut cost in the government. We need to sunset some organizations, which just means they need to go back to justify their entire budget,
Right.
and get our costs down. At the same time that we're doing that, we go in and we force local municipalities to move from property tax to a sales tax. And so, your counties and your ESDs and those all need to be moved over to sales tax. And then the state can also move theirs over from property tax to a sales tax. And if you do those 3 things, you spread the taxpayer base out. Less than 50% of Texans own property.
Okay.
So you've got, less than half are paying the majority of the taxes that go for services for everyone. So if you go from a property tax to a sales tax, now you've widened that base of taxpayers.
Okay.
And you still don't have an income tax, but now you're taxing people who are passing through our state, those who don't own property, and you're able to accomplish that at a much lower rate.
Okay. Let's talk for a minute about some of the things that's been said about you. I believe that there are a number of hit ads and stuff like that going on.
Yes.
So I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond, and just tell me what your thoughts are. So your integrity has been hit on a little bit. There's been talk about, he's not an attorney.
Yep.
And he is married and all this stuff. And how do you respond to those specific points right there?
Yep. This kind of goes back to what we first talked about, which was how do you run a campaign? And one of the things that we've stayed true to is we only hit our opponents on issues.
Okay.
they can't hit us on any issues. We're America First candidates who want to run on a close the border and election integrity. So he's going to go out and question my character and my integrity.
Okay.
And to do that, he doesn't source anything. He just says it and hopes people believe it is so. I have never lied about my job or my marriage.
Okay.
And so one of the things he keeps saying is that I'm lying and telling people I'm an attorney.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
I've not passed the bar or practiced law. I have a online law degree.
Okay.
Which was for my own benefit and knowledge. I enjoy government and history.
Sure.
And so I was able to get that back in 2015.
Okay.
But I have not gone around telling people that I'm an attorney or trying to make money off of that and do anything that way. So, that's all they can do is make things up and say that's what you're saying.
Okay.
But I have never lied about that. And then the second thing that they say is that I lied about my marriage status. Now, that's getting way out there.
Okay.
I am married. I have a wonderful, supportive, beautiful wife.
Okay.
And we have 2 boys, as I told you earlier. And I have bought property before I was married that was in my name, and I have property together with my wife from a refinance on the same property. But I only own 1 property.
Okay.
So unlike Dade Phelan, who has properties all over the state and owns his own bank,
Okay.
I'm not this property bear, and I own 1 property.
He owns his own bank for real?
Apparently, he's on the board or president of a bank that he bought.
Wow. Okay.
It's not the one that I'm financing through. By the way.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I bet that application would go missing.
Yeah, that application would go missing. So, so that's there's just nothing to it. It's lies and trying to undermine the character. But ultimately, the voters have to decide what's our track record,
Right.
and what have they seen from us. And one of the reasons President Trump endorsed me is because he does trust me.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons that Kid in Paxton, the Attorney General's endorsed me.
Sure.
That our Ag Commissioner, Sid Miller's endorsed me.
Right.
The Republican Party Chairman's endorsed me. Now, all these endorsements don't mean votes.
Right.
And ultimately, it's up to the voters in this district. That's
Right.
our community, my neighbors, your neighbors,
Right.
to decide. But what it tells the voters is, who am I aligned with?
Right. Right. No
And
doubt.
I like to show people the endorsements, because it shows I'm aligned with the people who are fighting the Biden administration. They're fighting the D.C. swamp. They're fighting the Austin swamp. And those are the people that I'm with.
Gotcha. So you would then say that documentation that's been placed online about you saying that you're an attorney and documentation saying that you are unmarried is a complete fabrication. Is that what you're saying?
It's a complete fabrication. If you look, there's only 1 document that they've pointed to about me saying I'm an attorney.
Okay. And didn't that have to do with campaign finance?
It was campaign finance. It was in 2020, I gave $20 to the Spindletop Republican women. And then in, I believe it was October of 2020, gave $100 to buy a ticket to a dinner for the Jefferson County Republican.
Right.
And those organizations reported on their report that I was attorney.
Okay.
That was not something I filled out. That was something they filled out.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's what he is using to say that I'm campaigning and putting on my resume that I'm an attorney. Something that someone else filled out.
My question would then be, you weren't running for this position in 2020.
That's correct. That's correct.
So there's that.
Yeah, that's very true too.
Okay.
That's very true.
So another quick question. The word has been spread around on different media sources and whatnot about you being a secessionist, a Texas secessionist. Is that true?
I have said a number of times that I support the people voting on this.
Okay.
And so I don't think this is something that the Texas legislature should decide. This is something that the people of Texas have to decide.
Gotcha.
And, I believe that I love this country.
Right.
And men fought and died and shed their blood for it.
No doubt.
And so I hope that we can save this country. I'm a states' rights guy. Where the state comes first.
Okay.
I think Texas is the greatest state in the country. But I hope we are able to save Texas and our country. But ultimately, this is not a decision for the legislature. This is something that the people of Texas would have to decide, and I would fight for that right.
What do you feel like is your biggest strength?
I think my strength is that I'm an everyday guy who has some insights into how the political class, how they make their deals behind the curtains, and I understand how to beat them at their own game as far as I know how to run a campaign, I know how to pass bills, I know how to be effective, but I'm not in the rhino camp. I'm a conservative, and that's what they hate about me.
Okay.
I'm an effective conservative because we got conservatives on our side who are right on the issues, but they're ineffective and they don't know how to get anything done.
Okay.
And so my strength is that I have always been a strong conservative, but I also know how to be an effective conservative.
So tell me this. Now, you have been involved with Texas Republican County Chair Association.
Yes.
Chairman Association, right? What was your role with them?
I was the legislative director for a term or a year, and then was the president for a term.
Okay. That organization gave Dade Phelan
Yes.
an award. Talk me through that.
So the County Chair Association is an organization that trains county chairs.
Okay.
Because it's a job that doesn't come with a lot of explanations.
Sure.
It's an elected position on the primary ballot, so we support them, tell them how to run a primary. At the end of the year, we do a legislative dinner and have the county chairs from around the state come and get to meet their legislators and just recognize the hard work of county chairs who are volunteers. They don't get paid for what they do, but it's really a full-time job. The board needed to get Dade Phelan to the organization, so they voted to give him a participation. No, it's true. It's true. He wasn't going to come unless he got a participation award, and so they voted to give him a participation award.
Oh man, now you know as well as I do. There's gonna be a bunch of people out there. They're gonna go, "Oh, he's talking mess now."
So Dade Phelan is apparently very proud of this award because he's put it on mailers. So I was the president.
Okay.
And I was also the MC of the program.
Okay.
Knowing that I knew Dade Phelan,
Sure.
and didn't have a agreement on how this was going to go down, I refused to give him the award personally.
Oh, okay.
So I stepped off the stage for that point, and someone else presented him his participation award, and then after his award, I got back up and finished the program.
Finish the program. Okay.
But the night was not about Dade Phelan. The night was about the county chairs.
Gotcha.
And all of their hard work.
Right. All right. So tell me what it's like when you look at your phone and it's probably a block number. It didn't pop up Donald J. Trump.
So...
or did it pop up Donald J. Trump?
No. One of the highlights of this campaign, for sure, has been I was having lunch,
okay,
and knocking out a few quotes from some work I was doing, and a restricted number comes in, and so I don't know why I answered it. 9 out of 10 times I wouldn't have answered it.
Sure.
Picked it up. Hello, this is David. And the other end of the phone was, David, this is Donald J. Trump. I nearly fell out of my seat. I didn't know what to say, so
David,
he said, I'm hearing some good things about you, and I think I'm going to endorse you. And so we went on to talk.
Okay.
And it was just amazing. He's just like on TV. He's energetic.
Sure.
He's full of fight and vigor, and he's really inspiring. And I think he's the best president in our lifetime.
Okay.
And what he was able to get done. So I was honored to talk to him. He told me why he's endorsing me is this race is critical, not only for Jasper and Orange and Jefferson County, but
right.
it affects all of Texas.
Sure.
And as Texas goes, so goes the nation. So he sees the importance of that. And this was the first House race in the country that he endorsed in. And that's very significant because this wasn't he endorsed to because of Ken Paxton asking him to. This was because he lost faith in Dade Phelan and Dade Phelan's record, and he had trust that I was the right person to go and to beat Dade Phelan and bring back conservative values.
That's got to be a wild phone call.
That was a wild phone call.
That's got to be a wild phone call.
I went to my notebook and wrote some notes on that one. So the years from now, I can still remember that.
Yeah, that's right. Tell your grandkids about it. You remember that guy?
That's right. I took a screenshot of the restricted number.
That's right.
My couple-minute phone call.
So I'm just going to ask you this question as a guy who comes from the blue-collar world. The only context that most of us have for politics is some sort of mixture between Game of Thrones and House of Cards. Okay?
Yep.
Game of Thrones, we know how they dealt with their adversaries.
Yep.
It was something about an axe or a spear or something.
Pretty vicious.
House of Cards is not too far removed from that. I think one of the questions that I've had, specifically for you, is I get tired of being told one thing and watching our politicians do something else.
Yeah.
How do people know that you have the balls to stand up for what you say you're going to stand up for?
Yeah. For one, I'm running against the most powerful Democrat in Texas.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So I had the guts to stick my neck out there, knowing that this is one of the most I don't know how to describe. I would say retaliatory people. Dade's entitled. He believes he deserves this.
Okay.
He believes that he deserves it because of his family, because it's his turn, and anyone that tries to upset the apple cart. He was hand chosen by the Democrat Alan Ritter, who he was staff for.
Okay.
To be his successor, and Dade Phelan's going to try to choose his successor when the time comes. So anyone that's trying to break in that line just is, he is the kind of person he wants to crush. So running against Dade Phelan, you had to have some guts.
Right.
And then look back at my record. I was on our local ESD board, it was the fire department, and I voted to not raise taxes.
Okay.
When the entire board voted to raise them. It wasn't much, and they honestly needed it. But the principle was, if we don't stop somewhere, then where do we stop? If everybody needs more money,
right?
Somebody has to do it, and these are my friends, and so I've taken a hard vote before,
okay,
and I've worked within the party. And even though I have been around guys like Dade Phelan and those that are in power that say one thing and do another, that hasn't rubbed off. They haven't pulled me into the club. I've stood solidly with the people against the politicians, and that's what I'm doing here. And it's a lonely thing to run a race like this.
Okay.
But it's also worth the fight because of what's at risk.
If people want to support, find you, access you, how do they go about doing that?
The best way is on my website.
Okay.
They can go to coveyfortexas.com and see more issues that I'm standing for.
Okay.
They can get me on Facebook, message me, call me. My phone number's on there, so
All right.
I'm always available and accessible. And I think that's one of my big goals as well, is to be in the counties and be accessible to the people.
Gotcha. Is there any last thing that you want to put out here to the people of Jasper County and your district?
I want to just thank everyone. I've met some wonderful people in the last few months, and they inspire me. And so I thank all the people for their support. I thank them for considering if they're supporting another candidate. Thank you for being involved in the process. And Jasper had a forum recently, and I was the only candidate that showed up. And that's because I respect the people that are participating.
Yeah.
And just like at that event, I was the only candidate that showed up. I will continue to show up for the people of Jasper, Orange, and Jefferson.
Sounds good. We'll see. Right?
Yep.
We'll see how far we get with this thing.
That's right.
And so right now we're at the beginning of early election.
That's right.
And March 5th is the actual election day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
David Covey, I appreciate you sitting down with me, man. And hey, let the chips fall where they may.
That's right.
Like Scripture says, God puts those in authority, right?
God is in control of this, and
That's right.
We trust Him, and we all do our part. And
our part is to vote.
Our part is to go vote.
That's exactly right.